My name is Natalie Gonnella Platts, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Women's Initiative at the George W. Bush Institute in Dallas, Texas. For those of you who may not be aware, there is another Bush Center. It is about 200 miles away, and it includes both the George W. Bush Presidential Library and Museum, as well as the George W. Bush Institute, which is a nonpartisan, nonprofit do tank. We are committed to advancing policy, developing leaders, and taking action to address today's most pressing challenges. And our work is really built off of the basis of issues that were important to President and Mrs. Bush during their time of public service, as well as this time now, which they often jokingly refer to it as the afterlife. And if you have been to our institute, when you walk in the door, on the wall, etched in very large letters, is an excerpt from a speech President Bush gave in London in 2003 at Whitehall Palace. And it states, "We believe in open societies ordered by moral conviction. We believe in private markets humanized by compassionate government. We believe in economies that reward effort, communities that protect the weak, and the duty of nations to respect the dignity and the rights of all." And that quote really, I think, is a great summary of all the work that we do at the Institute. So today, as this forum is very much meant to catalyze dialogue around women, peace, and security, I want to first give you an overview of all of the work we do at the Institute, and then narrow down more fully on the work that we do within our Women's Initiative. So in our focus on advancing policy and developing leaders and taking action, all of our program efforts are focused around 3 impact centers, the first of which being domestic excellence. Our work in economic growth advocates for free market principles that promote and further economic integration throughout North America, enabling the U.S. to better compete in the global economy. Our education reform work focuses on increasing student achievement and improving the quality of schools through accountability and principled leadership, using data to advocate for research-based education practices and policies. Our military service initiative helps post-9/11 veterans and their families make a successful transition to civilian life, with a focus on gaining meaningful employment and overcoming the invisible wounds of war. And I'm definitely going to be telling the leadership of that program that I had the privilege of speaking after the Secretary of the Air Force, so I'm really excited to go back and brag a little. Our Presidential Leadership Scholars program enhances the leadership impact of selected high-performing mid-career professionals who share a desire to create positive change in their communities and across the nation. We're honored to count the George H.W. Bush Presidential Library as one of our partners, as well as the William J. Clinton Library and the Lyndon B. Johnson Presidential Library. We also have our engagement agenda. So, as I mentioned, we have our Presidential Library and Museum, and we look to that to promote a greater understanding of the American presidency and examining the consequential times during which President Bush served. We have our public programming and publications, which we use to connect our work to the local community and the wider audience across the United States and the globe. We have a public programming throughout the year titled Engage, so if you do find yourself in Dallas, please let us know. We'd be honored to have any of you attend some of the very diverse speeches and moderated discussions that we host rather regularly. And then we also have the great fortune of being located on Southern Methodist University campus. So we are always looking to at how we can better collaborate with the university and utilize the great assets that exist at SMU. That brings me to our focus on global leadership. We believe strongly at the Bush Institute that what happens across the rest of the world matters. Our work in human freedom extends the reach of freedom around the world, which benefits our security at home and advances this basic human right, while also preparing young leaders in countries transitioning to democracy and supporting those living in tyranny by advocating for U.S. leadership abroad. We're very active in Burma, where we have our Liberty and Leadership Forum, which seeks to empower leaders at the grassroots level as that country continues its democratic transition. And we also do quite a bit of policy work relative to North Korea. Our global health work saves women's lives in the developing world from cervical and breast cancer through the global work of our Pink Ribbon Red Ribbon affiliate. Pink Ribbon Red Ribbon is now in its 5th year. It's built off the PEPFAR platform, and what we found was that women who are HIV positive are 5 times more likely to develop cervical cancer. Cervical cancer is preventable and it's treatable, and it's very easy to do both. So Bush Institute, along with 3 other founding partners, launched Pink Ribbon, Red Ribbon in 2011. We're currently active in 5 countries across sub-Saharan Africa, and it is very much a collaborative effort. To date, the initiative has screened over 280,000 women for cervical cancer, over 13,000 women for breast cancer, and they've vaccinated nearly 120,000 girls across 5 countries in Africa against HPV. We're currently active in Namibia, Botswana, Tanzania, Ethiopia, and Zambia. And that leads me to our Women's Initiative programming, which seeks to empower women worldwide by promoting access to education, healthcare, and economic opportunity, and supporting First Ladies from around the world to effectively use their unique platforms. Now, we also have 3 programs within the Women's Initiative itself. 3 seems to be a common theme. Through our Women's Initiative Fellowship, we are preparing the next generation of women leaders in the Middle East and across North Africa. Research shows that one of the best indicators of a woman's success is her network. Our fellowship develops leadership skills, teaches effective tools to help fellows become better advocates for social stability, and builds a strong women's network. You know, President and Mrs. Bush, when they launched this program shortly after the Arab Spring, commented, they believe strongly that women will lead the freedom and democracy movement in the Middle East. And the women we've engaged through this program come through from 6 different sectors of society. And they are so passionate about the prosperity for their communities and the future of their countries. We have currently welcomed 4 cohorts of fellows, 2 from Tunisia, 2 from Egypt. I'm delighted that Professor Aziz actually has served as one of our mentors. Each of the fellows is paired with an American mentor who has a similar background in their field of interest. It's a year-long fellowship program and really focuses on the ideals of principled leadership and how to lead as a woman in society. And it takes into account local nuance, and it also looks to form a network of empowered women who can essentially ripple the information and the empowerment that they've learned to their communities. We have women who have done everything from started mobile libraries to address literacy challenges in rural communities in Egypt. We have a woman who loved to run, and in Cairo, it's very difficult to run. She started an organization called Cairo Runners, and it not only has empowered those interested in running within the local community, but it has also offered an opportunity for individuals from different cultural backgrounds, different communities to come together and share a common interest. We have our Afghan Women's Project, which builds on the resolve and the example set by Mrs. Bush, who has advocated since her time as First Lady and has continued to advocate on behalf of women and girls in Afghanistan through our current work at the Institute. Yesterday actually marks the 15th anniversary of her presidential radio address. Mrs. Bush was the first person other than a US president to give the president's radio address. And she used that opportunity to focus on the oppression of women and girls in Afghanistan by the Taliban. And it really served as a catalyst to garner international attention on the enduring challenges that persist there. Not long after, Mrs. Cherie Blair stood outside 10 Downing and gave a similar speech, and you've seen women in very prominent positions, as well as women at the grassroots level, continue to steward the charge and really move the needle forward for women and girls in their communities. We recently launched a book, We Are Afghan Women, Voices of Hope, which tells the story of 29 change makers in their own words. Mrs. Bush authored the introduction to that book, but it really tells the story of the successes and the spirit of women in Afghanistan, and presents really a view of hope and hope for the future, and that this cause isn't just for women and girls, but it's really in the interest of everyone, both in Afghanistan and globally. We also have our First Ladies Initiative, which seeks to engage and support First Ladies globally in using their very unique platforms to improve lives in their countries. We launched the initiative in 2013 in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. We had the great fortune of welcoming Mrs. Obama, Mrs. Cherie Blair, 8 First Ladies from across the African continent to really talk about the value of women's leadership in addressing challenges across education, economic opportunity, and healthcare, and how we can work together to create effective change. The program itself is focused on 4 key areas of activity, the first of which is building a robust network of global advocates who can continue to steward change and shine a spotlight on important issues, both at the community level as well as the country level. Being a presidential center, we have a unique opportunity to bring people together, so you will see this theme of network replicated in our First Ladies Initiative, and we recognize that we have the power to convene and draw attention to important issues. We also recognize that best practice sharing really is critical to advancing sustainable change. In 2014, we launched our advisor training session, which brings together chiefs of staff and senior advisors to First Ladies to talk through effective processes and concepts integral to effective program launch and the integration of partnerships. To date, we've hosted 4 trainings, everywhere from New York to Johannesburg, and we're currently looking now at how we can build out that programming to better serve the demographics within the program audience. We also aim to foster sustainable public-private partnerships. Public-private partnerships are really a foundation of all of the work we do at the Institute, and very much so within the work of the Women's Initiative. We have a unique ability to bring people together and to really talk through how effective collaboration happens. And so that's something we do at a very strategic level in certain countries across the globe, looking at issues from creating economic empowerment programs that take a holistic view on how to really bolster economic opportunities for women, to looking at how to bolster education and literacy efforts. We also recognize that there is a significant lack in research on First Ladies. While there is some scholarly study in the United States, if you look to First Ladies globally or spouses of state leaders globally, there virtually is nothing. So a year and a half ago, we partnered with the International Center for Research on Women to do a comprehensive analysis on the enabling as well as disabling factors for First Ladies and how they can overcome common challenges to ensure the effective use of their platform. This research will be released in March of 2017, and through that, we've also identified recommendations for First Ladies, but also women leaders in how they can effectively leverage common factors to ensure success of their mission. To date, we've engaged over 40 current and former First Ladies from across the globe, and through the various activities that I've outlined, we're looking at how we can begin to connect some of the work that First Ladies with which we work with are doing to other program areas across the Institute. For instance, our military service initiative, Mrs. Obama has been very active on support for service members and their families. And so, for instance, Mrs. Bush and Mrs. Obama recently participated in a discussion in September highlighting the mutual interest they have in the work that they're doing to empower service members. We also are looking at how we can work with First Ladies in some of the other strategic regions that we're working on through other initiative areas, like our Liberty and Leadership Program and the Young Leaders in Burma. First Lady in Burma has been very active on education, and so looking for synergies in how we can bolster continued dialogue and development within that context. I want to conclude today on why this matters, and I really don't need to get into the statistics because I think Valerie very accurately covered just the scale of the challenges that persist for women and girls worldwide. But generally speaking, we know that when women have access to education, their children are more likely to be educated. They're less likely to fall prey to child marriage or trafficking. We know that when women have equal access to the economy, their families are healthier and their communities are more prosperous. And when we know that when women have access to quality health care, it changes the trajectory for both their children and themselves. Mrs. Bush often says investments in women are investments that pay off, and we know that women are catalysts for positive change. So with that, I invite 2 invitations. The first is, if you are in Dallas, please come see us. We're excited to welcome you. And the second is, and I use a quote from the First Lady of Namibia, Mrs. Monica Gengos, who also was recently appointed as the UN AIDS Special Advocate for Start Free, Stay Free. Change happens when we break down silos and work together. And so I really appreciate that this opportunity allows us to catalyze dialogue and get to know the work of our respective organizations. So please let us know what you're doing. And we're very interested in staying up to speed in your various efforts, publications, and looking for ways that we might work together in the future. And with that, I want to close on a representation of what we're doing with regard to women, peace, and security. And I think We Are Afghan Women, Voices of Hope, the book that I mentioned, really demonstrates the value of investments in women and girls, especially in regions where there is persistent conflict, but there also is persistent hope.
Imagine a world in which a woman keeps bees in secret. She is not supposed to leave her house without permission. She is not supposed to work, certainly not as a beekeeper, a job reserved for men. But she does. Her biggest challenge is picking a queen bee. Without a good queen, the hive cannot be productive. The queen gives life to the hive, but she is the one bee that will never leave. She can never escape the walls around her. During the Taliban years, women in Afghanistan were like the queen bee, trapped in the darkness of their own hive. They survived by working in shadows, behind curtains, under the cover of cloth. But when the Taliban fell and darkness gave way to light, Afghan women found their freedom to take flight. Under the Taliban, barely 5,000 girls attended school and only 900,000 boys. Challenges remain, but there is hope. It is estimated there are now more than 2.5 million girls in school and 8 million boys. More than 120,000 girls have graduated from secondary school, and 15,000 have graduated from college. Today, women make up 36% of the teachers, and 3,000 Afghan women own and run their own business. We Are Afghan Women, Voices of Hope, lifts the veil on the lives of these women. They speak of the price of decades of war, of their struggles to survive and find a place in the world, and how, despite everything, they have found their worth as women. They are stories like that of the beekeeper Zainul, who still keeps bees, and as she watches them take flight, dreams of freedom for all Afghan women.
Thank you.